Good morning. My name is Chris Fates. Welcome to my new blog, Zen for 10, Storytelling and Sound. If you have visited the blog before, you know that the usual way that I do this is to have a short piano performance video and then some written notes about the piece and the composer. But today I thought I would try something a little bit different. Whenever I'm performing recitals, whenever I'm doing any live performance, I always like to talk to the audience in between pieces and introduce the different pieces and composers. And so I thought I would try that kind of structure here today. It's a little strange to talk to the phone, but that's okay, I'll work with it. So if you visited the blog last week, and if you didn't, I encourage you to go back and check out last week's entry. But if you did visit the blog last week, you know that the composer featured was Domenico Scarlatti, who is from the Baroque era, which dates from 1600 to 1750. Domenico Scarlatti was one of the great Italian Baroque composers, and in last week's entry I talked a little bit about the Italian Baroque style, its emphasis on elegance and lightness and clarity, and I mentioned that it contrasts with the style written by German composers from the Baroque era. So I thought today it might be fun to look at that contrasting Baroque style and to take a look at a short piece written by Johann Sebastian Bach. Bach is one of our greatest composers and certainly one of the greatest composers of the Baroque era. He was born in 1685 and he died in 1750. And we mark the end of the Baroque era with his death in 1750 because what he did as a composer was that he used the styles and the ideals of the Baroque era so exhaustively that the next generation of composers felt that they really had to create something totally new. So that is why we mark the end of that period of music history with his death. So the piece that I'd like to play for you today is a short work of J.S. Bach. It is a Sinfonia, also called a three-part invention, and specifically this is the Sinfonia number 13 in A minor. If you are a pianist or if you've taken piano lessons, you might be familiar with Bach's two-part inventions. In those pieces, what you get is kind of a dialogue between the right hand and the left hand. There's a melody that's being traded back and forth between the two hands, and each of the hands is totally independent of the other. So in this three-part invention, or sinfonia, what we have, again, is a melody that's going to be traded between the two hands, but now, instead of just having a high voice and a low voice, Bach is going to incorporate a third voice in the middle range of the keyboard, in the middle register. So he's basically creating the effect of having three different voices. You can think of three different singers singing together or three different instruments playing together, but doing that all in the context of just the one keyboard instrument. So at the beginning of this piece, you're going to hear a very simple little tune in the right hand. It sounds like this. Very straightforward, but you're going to hear what he does with that tune over the course of the piece, trading it between the two hands, embellishing it, adding new musical ideas in. This kind of imitative writing is one of Bach's favorite compositional techniques. It creates an interesting puzzle for him as a composer because he wants each of the hands to be independent of the other, but then of course he also wants everything to sound good when it's played together. So it's an interesting and complicated compositional form. So thank you again for checking the blog out, and now I'd like to play for you J.S. Bach's Sinfonia number 13 in A minor.